Hello and welcome. So today is the second in this series of conversations, and I am going to be talking to my ladies and one gent who are in my book, Leading Ladies, and this is the book we're talking about, and this is something that I released back in 2016, in which there are stories of 32 men and women and one man, who have shared their story with me. And in the process of that, we've stitched together this lovely tapestry of the kind of different things that have helped these individuals to find purpose in their lives. And today I'm focusing on the topic of philanthropy and giving. And what you're going to notice is that uh, these individuals have actually gone down the path they have either through a deep personal experience, or it's been because they have come across a cause that they have felt extremely compassionate and passionate about. So my hope is that at the end of this conversation, you're going to go away with some real sort of insight into what giving, philanthropy, and charity work is all about. And hopefully, it's going to give you the confidence to go and do something that you feel really strongly about. So with that, I'm going to get my guests today to introduce themselves very briefly, and then we're going to go into a sort of free-flowing conversation, stroke panel discussion, where you're only going to see the person who's actually speaking on your view. But I can see all of them here, but I don't want to clutter your screen with too many faces. So let's kick off with Anna Kennedy. Anna, please introduce yourselves. Introduce yourself to our viewers.
Hi, my name's Anna Kennedy, and I work in the field of autism because of my two sons, Patrick and Angelo. Patrick's now 30, he's got a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome, and Angelo's 27. He's quite profoundly affected by his autism and has got sensory processing condition. And because of the lack of the provision of where I lived, I decided to roll my sleeves up and set up a school, a college, and a charity to give a platform to families and to autistic individuals so that they can make their mark in the world just like everybody else.
Thank you, Anna. And Anna's story is actually incredibly inspiring for anyone who comes across a situation where they have this deep need for which there is no service available. And I think, if you don't know Anna's story, you can Google her, but better still, read her story in my book. It genuinely is an inspirational one. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you.
Let's next go to Pooja. Pooja Kapur, please introduce yourself, Pooja.
Hi, I my name is Pooja Kapur. I run a pro bono social initiative called Towards a Special Cause. And basically, after I finished my post graduation, I decided to try and help whatever cause I could in any way I could. But 21 years ago, I decided to formalize this as an initiative. We're not an NGO, we don't take funds. We basically help, channelize. People's funds should they want to do that, or people's efforts, and we help spread awareness about causes. We tend to work with causes which are not very well known, that are much more in need of maybe funding or help or resources, rather than the very, very well known ones. So that's pretty much summarizes what I do.
And I think, Pooja, your story again was deeply influenced by a member of your family who is
Yes.
very, very
Yes.
unwell. So again, Pooja's story is really moving. Please, please do read her story in the book. But I think what I love about your approach is that you are not yourself, hoping to get money as a charity or an NGO, that your idea is to connect worthy NGOs with donors and supporters. Is that right?
That's right. So, unlike Anna or somebody whose child was, had a certain conditions because of which, in my case, it was a member of my family who I grew up watching, and that impacted me a lot as a child. And I think I really identify with places and people where you don't get enough help, and then you just have no option but to do what you feel didn't exist when you went out looking for it. And The reason I started Towards a Special Cause primarily was because, I found that there was a gap between people who were doing exceptional work and people who actually wanted to reach out to those people. And somehow, that I found there was a big gap in that area. So I became like the middle person to connect the people who were doing the exceptional work, like Anna is, and those who wanted to reach out and help make a difference. So, well, in the process, I also have, we've also been mentors and trainers, but that was all part of the journey. And we have a special focus on blind children and children with special needs.
Thank you. That sounds amazing. We're going to talk a lot more about that very shortly. Next, I'd like Shoma Bakri to introduce herself. Hi, Shoma.
Hi, I'm Shoma Bakri. I'm founder of Let's Do Some Good Foundation. And as you can tell, the name is very simple, and what we try to do is also very simple. It all started with my personal journey. Coming from a fairly humble background, I was able to start a company with a few other people, do fairly well, exit, at the age of 41, and didn't have to worry about bread and butter. And that was around the time when I figured that God has a plan. There's a reason why, we were able to be successful as a company, and I was able to retire at such an early age. And social work was something that was, that ran in my family. I always wanted to do it. And I said, you know what, I have at least a few, decades left to live, and let's put that in service. And I really believed very strongly in the power of education. The only reason I was able to do anything that I did in life was because of the education that I had. And one of my pet projects was to start working with urban slum children. In India, there's a huge disparity, as most of you know, in the access to education and the ability of people to actually educate their children. Started with that, and one of the largest projects that we run is in the space of education, and Ro has been a huge supporter of our projects. She has funded us for 3 years in a row for hundreds of children to be able to be schooled, children who never had an opportunity otherwise. Starting with that, we expanded into health, nutrition, livelihood, empowerment of women, youth, and children, because everything is intertwined. Education by itself is nothing. The whole purpose of providing education to a child is to enable that child to grow up and be a contributing citizen, to be independent, to be financially independent, and be a proud citizen of our country. So it started with all of that, and we've been doing hundreds of projects ever since we started 7 years back. And although education is still very close to my heart, what I do realize is that a hungry child cannot learn anything. A child who is not healthy cannot live on to success that stems out of education. So everything is intertwined. And so any project that we do, any intervention that we're doing, takes care of multiple aspects besides education in order to empower the individuals that we're trying to work with. So that's my story.
Love it. It's a very, integrative approach, or holistic approach to well-being and helping people to pull themselves out of poverty. I love that. Next, I want to introduce the only man in my book, Vaidi. Welcome, Vaidi. And of course, the reason Vaidi is the only man in my book is really when we wrote Vaidi's story, was really through his mother's story, his late mother, Ganga, whose own story is incredibly moving and inspiring, and it's very much the story of lots of women who never really got a full education, were probably married quite young, had children, and their families became the focus of their entire lives. And I think often society ignores those women because we don't see them working or contributing to our economy or society. And I think Ganga's story, told by Vaidi, is a reminder that without women like Ganga, where would we be? So, but welcome, Vaidi, and your story in itself is incredibly powerful. So I want you to maybe just introduce yourself very briefly in terms of what you do now.
Hi, and Rohini and me actually studied together at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, popularly known as IIM Bangalore. And I sustained a spinal cord injury on campus there, but my philosophy in life has always been to look ahead, something that my mother strongly believed in. And so I quickly got back my training in independent living, and went back to campus, completed my course, struggled for 2 years without a job because in the early 90s, wheelchairs was unheard of in India. And subsequently, they were built a corporate career. And a batchmate of mine, Ilango Tambaya, uh, and me, we set up the Ganga Foundation to work for people with spinal cord injury. And that's what we've been doing. I quit my corporate career in March 2013 to work full time in this cause. And we've our work touches the lives of about 10,000 persons with spinal cord injury, but that's a rather unimpressive number because it probably accounts for maybe 2.5% of people who live with spinal cord injury in India, which is a massively unsolved problem. And even today, only 1 in 10 or best case gets good quality training in independent living. I'm also a fitness freak. I'm India's first wheelchair half marathon runner, and done 16 so far, and travel all over the place. And it's a pleasure to be with all of you today. Thank you. Thanks, Ro.
Thank you, Vaidhi. And I think the thing to note about Vaidhi's story is that literally overnight he went from being, just like anybody else on campus to suddenly, having this injury, which meant his whole life was turned upside down. And how he's come through that and how he's turned that adversity into this amazing, enterprise where he's helping others is really, to me, it's very inspiring. Thank you, Vaidhi. And last but not least, welcome, Avril. Nice to see you. You're a little bit in darkness. I wonder if that's something you can, don't worry about now, but maybe you could turn on a light or something, because, in the UK, we just, even though it's daytime, it's actually quite dark sometimes. But would you introduce yourself, please, to our viewers? And I think you need to unmute yourself first. Thank you.
Of course, yes. Hello, everyone. Hi. I'm Avril Hitman, and in 1985, I founded an organisation called Magpie Dance that works with people with learning disabilities through the medium of dance and the performing arts. And when I set up Magpie Dance way back then, a lot of the long stay institutions were closing, and there were very few cultural opportunities for people with learning disabilities, let alone to perform on stages or choreograph work. So I set this up as just a weekly class, 45 minutes a week, no money, no resources, just me. I led and grew and developed the charity over 32 years till it became a nationally recognised model of good practice in the dance and disability sector. And did lots of projects and performances across the UK, worked with choreographers and companies until I stepped down in 2017. So I just have to keep reminding myself, 3.5 years ago, I stepped down after 32 years because it was time really to move on. And I set up Avril Hitman Consultancy because I wanted to utilise my knowledge and skills and experience of everything that I'd learned over 32 years to make a difference to other people in the charity and cultural sectors. So I've been working on that for the last 3.5 years, which is really interesting, very varied, doing talks, advising people, mentoring people, doing consultancies for other organisations, charities, and it's really interesting and very varied. So that's me.
Avril. So are you mentoring other charities, or is it individuals, or how does that work?
Well, I'm mentoring, I'm mentoring a couple of individuals who are involved in charities or the cultural sector.
I see.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm doing advisory. I've done some talks for the Institute of Fundraisers. I was a panel member. They did a webinar on social impact in the arts recently, which was really interesting. So yeah, so it's quite varied.
Thank you so much. So with those introductions, I want to sort of jump into the big topic of our current times, which is the pandemic and the influence that has had on, obviously on all of our lives, but especially on, charities that rely on, the goodwill and generosity of others. And also in some cases where your charities involve actually working with people on the ground, what that's meant for you. So if I could start with Anna. Anna, especially with people with autism, for them, any change in routine or, change in the people they're dealing with can be very destabilizing. How have you, what's been your experience of what the pandemic has done to your cause?
With reference to the charity, obviously it's been difficult as in with events, because obviously we do a lot of events as a charity, like Autumn's Got Talent, the main show, and also the road shows where we travel across the country. Also our expo, we couldn't have it at Brunel University, but we managed to do something online where we're able to share information, and we had some fantastic speakers. So it's also made us think about, we can actually do the expo at Brunel University, but also now we're going to do it online as well, so that for people who can't travel across the country to the university, that we can still do something for them. So that was a plus for us. We haven't been able to obviously create any funding because of the events. So we have had things where we've done a charity event where we've done like sponsored walks, all those sort of things, just to try and bring a little bit of money into the charity. We've been doing competitions where a lot of families have said thank you so much, because it's kept their children or adults occupied. So whatever the topic might be, we've done a VE day. We had some fantastic artwork that came in. We did, with reference to anti-bullying, Give Us a Break, again, posters. We worked alongside Watford Football Club as well, where they did something with their Hornets, and so they created fantastic. So it's just thinking out the box all the time. With reference to support, I have had quite a few families that have chatted to me. I speak to a lot of autistic adults lately, where some of them have just been leaving me messages on the answering machine, but it's not that they want me to ring them back, they just want me to listen to them. So it's just somewhere where they can vent, or whether they can just share how they're feeling, speaking to families. So a bit of a mixed package with families, where you've got families that are saying, it's not that much different for us because we're isolated anyway. Adults, are working from home. And then you've got the other side where parents are saying it's very, very difficult. They're juggling, trying to juggle their jobs, or they've lost their jobs, trying to homeschool, which they've never done before, which is very, very frustrating. With reference to myself as well and my sons, Patrick was furloughed from working at Pinewood Studios. He's been working there now for nearly 2.5 years. So he was at home, and then Angela was at home. So it was quite difficult for me I just felt I was, how can I say, smothered with autism, because I've got my boys at home, then speaking to families, trying to think of stuff with the charity, but you just get through it day by day. And what I have been, that I've noticed to a lot of families, is I've been quite a good motivator for them. So it's like they watch to see what I'm doing. So, oh, Anna's keeping going, so sending positive messages, keep strong, keep well, one day at a time. I was doing things in the summer where, I was chatting as I was walking, or I was doing trampolining. I was trying to think of different things to try and motivate people. And I'm quite good at doing stuff like that. I've always been quite a positive person. It doesn't matter what stuff gets thrown at me. And I'm a person that I'll keep smiling. It doesn't matter how I'm feeling inside. I'm always positive. And I think that's because of my dad. He's always said to me that, when I was younger, it doesn't matter how you feel, walk tall, keep going, keep smiling, keep thinking positive. And I think I've taken that along with me throughout my journey with autism. So it has been a bit frustrating, but it also, it's been, how can I say, the community have been supporting each other a lot more as well, which is great within the autism community. And I've continued to do my women's radio, bringing speakers in, autistic adults, giving them an opportunity where they've never spoken on radio before. So they've been able to talk about their cause, the way they're feeling, giving them ideas. And so we're having our Zoom party with all my volunteers on Thursday. So that's going to be something a bit different, because every Christmas we always get together. We either go to Hyde Park for the Winter Wonderland, or we have a party where all the volunteers come together. I'm lucky that everybody that works in the charity, no one gets paid, everyone's a volunteer, and they do it because they're passionate about what they're doing. And also what I've been doing in this charity is creating more ambassadors, more role models, charity champions and charity patrons. So yeah, it's been tough, but it's been a learning curve, and everyone's been supporting each other, and that's what's important.
Thank you, Anna. And I have the same question to Vaidi. Vaidi, I mean, a lot of your work has obviously been partly, awareness, it's education, it's actually going and supporting families of, people who've been affected by spinal cord injury. How has that been impacted by the pandemic?
The 2020 pandemic here has been a sort of a breakthrough year. So far, whenever we had to meet and guide any person with spinal cord injury, we'll think we'll have to go to a rehabilitation institute or some hospital set up. But with the pandemic, I know this video mode was always available for the last 7 years. We somehow never used it, but we were pushed towards using it. And right now, uh, not just myself, but our entire team of 50 peer trainers. Peer trainers are persons with spinal cord injury or relatives of persons with spinal cord injury who guide, train, motivate, and others with spinal cord injury. So we use video calls extensively, and we are right there inside the home of the person with spinal cord injury, able to uh, uh, have a conversation with them and their family members in real time, have an assessment of the home conditions. If certain modifications are required, we're able to suggest that. And the experience sharing work that I used to do for about 7 years with all the visits to Christian Medical College, Vellore, over 130 kilometers from Chennai, and has India's oldest and best rehabilitation institute. We are now doing that inside the homes of every person with spinal cord injury. And it's been a breakthrough year. We were always wondering how to reach a person with spinal cord injury living in the remote village of India. And while the pandemic has caused so much devastation, I think it's also been a silver lining for us in reaching out to every person with spinal cord injury in India. And I'm more confident about accomplishing our vision now than, let's say, on January 1st, 2020.
That's incredible. And I think the point you're trying to make is that now suddenly technology and, video calling and Zoom, I remember in my early days when I was coaching, I had to tell people what Zoom was and how to download it. And now everyone uses Zoom, which is fantastic. So I think one of the constraints you had, Vaidi, was obviously bandwidth, because there's only one of you. And even if you have 5 people in your team, there's only 5 of you. And as you said, there's like a huge unmet need. So this way, are you finding that you can reach so many more people without leaving your home? And so your time is being better spent. Is that your experience?
Absolutely, 100%. And I mean, for the time I used to spend in traveling up and down to Vellore, which is about 6 hours, I can do calls with 6 different people. And our team of peer trainers has also grown from 60 at the beginning of the year to 50 now, thanks to one of our CSR partners who was uh, who liked the work that the team was doing. So they scaled the support even in a difficult year such as this. And
Fantastic.
we have peer trainers now in 21 states in India.
Right.
And so we hope to do even more in the next couple of years.
Lovely. That's so good to hear. So Pooja, I want to come to you next. I think a similar sort of situation with the causes you've been supporting, because I know amongst your causes also are, MAN, which is a school for children with autism and other special needs, and, obviously the blind and the deaf. So talk us through how some of these beneficiaries of these NGOs have actually coped with the pandemic, because it's been destabilizing for people who don't have those limitations. How have they felt and how have they been helped? I think you might be still on mute, Pooja.
Okay, yeah. So firstly, it's fantastic hearing Anna and Vaidi. I mean, that's just amazing. I'm going to just give a slightly different perspective. A lot of us belong to the community that's really seen the plus side or a breakthrough, as Vaidi said, related to the pandemic. But there is for kids like who were going to MAN or Om Creations Trust or Aditya, which is young adults for the benefit of the others listening. These are organizations where there's vocational training being given to young adults with special needs. These places were not just where they were working, these were their happy spaces away from home. They gave the mothers, primarily, and also, of course, fathers, a much needed break from, having to look after, the kids, keeping them occupied. The kids found this to be a very positive space. So suddenly with the pandemic, while, you do have, they've all moved marvelously onto, online teaching and online learning, there is a huge vacuum that cannot be filled with Zoom calls or with, with online learning. For one of the centers, Om Creations Trust, where it is a vocational space where you do paintings and you create beautiful stuff, there's a huge issue there because you cannot get the work done with children being scattered in various parts of rural India if they've gone back home, and being able to, work from there. So this has been actually the sad part of, the pandemic, where a lot of the work part of it has suffered. Apart from work, a lot of the emotional, escape that kids had, the happiness quotient of being amongst these wonderful caregivers. So whenever, there are these huge learnings and positive breakthroughs that have happened through this year. These are some of the things that sadly will not find very easy solutions. So I do hope they can get back to being, where their normal was a much happier space for them, where, the emotional connect, the physical connect is very, very important. So that's one of the things that we've seen. Secondly, I think, where a lot of our work was about providing resources to empower people with special needs or blind students. Starting, mid-May, or end March, everything became about rations. So it was all about food and supplies and medicines. And, my first thing was, okay, everyone's locked in at home. And in Bombay, a lot of people in Mumbai live in very small spaces. So what is it that we can provide to help you entertain your children? How, what can we buy, what can we supply? And the first thing was, all of that is miscellaneous stuff for us right now. We need rations and we need food. So a large part of the, pandemic for us was about procuring rations and food supplies. Entertainment and a lot of the other emotional stuff sadly came as became secondary. So this was, I mean, I just wanted to throw some light on, the not exactly very happy, outcome of the pandemic also, which is a reality that, thousands of people are facing today.
Yeah, that's very true. And we're going to talk a little bit about that emotional vacuum that you talked about, which I think especially people with special needs who don't understand what this pandemic is all about sometimes, it must be incredibly hard for them to deal with. But I want to come to, I think, from what you were saying, Pooja, I want to ask Shoma how, how it has impacted your work, Shoma, because a lot of the children, who were being educated were actually children who lived in these slums, and their parents had been, immigrants from other parts of the country. And my understanding is that a number of these families were told to go back home, which brings me to the question: how have you and the other charities that work with you, how have you dealt with this mass exodus of your children leaving and not being around?
Yep, I could actually relate very well to what Pooja was saying, and in fact, even to what Vaidi and Anna said. It's a mixed bag. So while there's a blessing because there are breakthroughs happening because of the pandemic, and you're forced to do things a certain way, and you discover that possibilities are endless. The pandemic itself, the way it blew away our minds was because we had, we work with the poorest of the poor. You've seen the slums, Ro. You've visited them yourself, right? And you've seen how poor they are. These are daily wage laborers. They live hand to mouth. Every day that they go to work, they earn something, come back, eat. And it took us years to convince these people to send their children to school with us. So the first thing we saw was the undoing of all the years of good work that we had done. Suddenly education was the lowest in the priority list for these people. They needed food, as Pooja said, right? Daily wage earners, if their work is stopped, they don't have anything to eat. So rations, yes, supplying rations became of preeminent importance for us, making sure that they got medicines, the basic stuff that's required. Educating them, making them aware of the importance of hygiene. Again, they live in slums where there is not a drop of water. Forget about washing hands. Forget about social distancing. So distributing masks, soap, ensuring that we are making them aware of the importance of trying to at least keep themselves clean and safe from this virus. So it was very, very hard. But what we experienced, so this started in March with the lockdown and people lost employment. There was mass exodus. There were people trying to go back to their villages and really had no means to do that. So what happened is we started with rations, but very soon we started distributing PPEs even to health care workers because there was a shortage. We were helping people outside of our beneficiaries who were trying to travel to their villages. People would go and line up in the railway stations and the bus stops, trying to catch transport back home and camp there night after night after night without food, water, anything, just because they wanted to go home. So one of the beauties of the way we work is that we work in collaboration with multiple organizations. So we have about 130 partners. So we literally piggybacked on each other and made sure that we were able to reach out to thousands and thousands of people who were either without food, shelter, needed transport, needed help with anything. And we were able to actually, we provided rations to thousands of people, hot meals to thousands of people, not just in Bangalore, but in Tamil Nadu, in other parts of India, wherever our partners have, presence. We piggybacked on them. We made sure that we got the resources, we got the funds. We made sure they went to the right people. So the whole idea was, how do we stop people from dying of hunger or dying of exhaustion before the virus even gets to them, right? I mean, that the virus was far away. It was more of these ground realities that we had to tackle every day. And it was an eye opener because in my foundation, I fund a lot of stuff, and then we also have a lot of donors who come in and provide money, and we literally had money pouring in from strangers who we don't even know, who had heard about the work we are doing. I mean, of course we would send out appeals here and there, but we said, come what may, our work has to go on unstinted. It doesn't matter, the funds will come. And it really came. People just open their purses. This is not usual. In normal times, there's a lot of skepticism about, should we, give money to this charity or that? Are they doing credible work? Here, no questions asked. There was just money pouring in from individuals primarily. The CSR funds were a little different of a story because suddenly they were all stumped. The normal pillars of CSR that each organization had, which was education or environment or whatever, everything was just challenged because suddenly there was the pandemic and corporates were just wondering, what should we do now? Because they themselves were in a position where they had to see, did they have to downsize? How are they going to deal with the loss of business? So we had a period of about 3 months or so where there was a lot of uncertainty about the CSR funds. But slowly and gradually, as things stabilized, organizations came back and started, saying, okay, we'll carry on with whatever we were doing, perhaps give more funds for COVID relief, etc., etc. So overall, I think there was an overwhelming outpouring of help from all quarters, not just from known people, but unknown individuals, organizations, people from overseas. And we did incredible amount of work only because we were collaborating with multiple organizations. Otherwise, it's not possible to do the scale of work that we did. But the learning, in all of that is that, paradigms shift, and it's something like this that changes absolutely everything about the way you have functioned so far. So we had never ever imagined online education for the rural poor or the urban slum children. They simply didn't have access to anything, right? But right now we have restarted all of that, and we are providing tabs 2 children, we are making sure that every household gets at least one tab that 2 or 3 kids can use and education can continue. We are ensuring that we are providing some kind of nutrition support to these children who are now missing out on their midday meal that they used to get with us. So we try to ensure they get some kind of food support from us. We are trying to ensure that the parents get back into a rhythm where they can start earning. So we again have organizations we partner with, which work in the livelihood space. So we're trying to connect the parents there. So we are working with all, aspects of the problem of the pandemic, and the impact it's had on our families that we work with. Just because no one thing, as I said, education is now, I think, the lowest priority for these families. It's food, clothing, shelter, and above all, livelihood. So unless we tackle all these together, there's not going to be any success in anything that we do. And we've realized that online education may actually change things and bring about some equity in education. Unlike earlier, where the privileged children had access to so much more than underprivileged. Yes, we are still trying to sort out problems of connectivity. We are still trying to sort out problems of device accessibility. We have amazing social entrepreneurs we're working with who are trying to solve these problems, coming up with online education solutions that work with 2G networks, that work on the most basic phones, just so that children can continue with their education. So I think, I've come out extremely grateful to have had the opportunity to work with fantastic people and organizations who are working so hard to, help people survive this ordeal. And hopefully to emerge much more resilient than they were before the pandemic hit. And actually, for all of us, I think it's the same story, right? So on the one hand, we've been very privileged, kids home, getting doorstep delivery of everything we want, lovely bonding of family members being together. But every time I think about the people we work with or work for, it's a reality check, because their reality is so far removed from, what we have. So very grateful to have actually lived through this pandemic and to have been able to do what we are doing. And hopefully, we'll continue to do our work and make small changes and help people survive.
I love it. I just love how every one of you is so passionate about what you do. And I think, Shoma, from what you said, it's about collaboration. It's about continuing to do the right thing, and the resource somehow appears. It's amazing. I love that. I'm mindful that Anna has to leave in about 15-20 minutes. So Avril, I do want to ask that same question to you, but can I, if I may, can I just get Anna to contribute a few more things before she's got to leave? She's got a radio interview. So Anna, I want to, I'm going to unmute you. I want to ask you about, a couple of success stories. And also I want to sort of, as an add-on to that, you are somebody, I mean, from the time I've known you, you're like this, these energizer batteries, that kind of just keep going, keep going, keep going. I'm interested in how you recharge your own battery, because you are, unlike a lot of people that maybe do the kind of work you do, you have in your own personal life, you have, as you put yourself, smothered with autism. How do you step back and allow yourself to recharge and come back, so you can, because otherwise there's always a danger that you will sort of maybe drain yourself of vitality and energy. So there's two questions in there. One is success stories, and secondly, how do you stay positive and strong?
Success stories, I would say quite a few really. And since obviously you've written the book, the school that I set up where we remortgaged our home celebrated 20 years. So 500 pupils have walked through the door since then and been educated from 19 local authorities around the areas from where we live. And what the lovely thing was that when we celebrated our 20-year anniversary, one of our very first pupils was at the celebration assembly that we had, as were many, but he started working at the school. So for me, that was just totally amazing. So from a child that was really, really struggling, and I know the whole story behind this young man, but I don't want to share it, but he has come through everything. And he came up to me and said, Anna, I just want to let you know that I'm starting as a teaching assistant. And I was just like, I just felt so overwhelmed in my body. And since then, another couple of young people working at the school. So for me, for 500 children who've been educated within the school, that have gone on to college, or gone on to supported living, or whatever it is that they've achieved. That's been fantastic. And also my own son Patrick, you know, securing a full-time employment. It was a struggle to get there, but he's finally got there, and he's now working at Pinewood Studios, and he's absolutely loving it. It's been a very much a roller coaster, but the company has really supported him, and I can see he's really growing now. So the next big step for him would be to get his own place. So we're working on it. You know, it's happened a little bit later on in life, but with autism, as you know, it's these little steps that are absolutely huge for families, and for families like my own. Another big thing is from Give Us a Break, the anti-bullying campaign I created quite a few years ago, and been working with Childline at that time, and then also the Anti-Bullying Alliance. It's grown and grown and grown, and Autism's Got Talent was born because of that, which is a fantastic platform for autistic children and adults to showcase what they can do. And the talent that has come out of Autism's Got Talent has been absolutely amazing, and has created fantastic role models. We've had charity albums since then, charity singles. Some of the performers have performed on television, on BBC. I now get Britain's Got Talent and The Voice contact me asking, do I have any children or adults? That, so for me, it's created another avenue to show, look what these children and adults can achieve. And just to go back a little bit on the negative side, if you like, for bullying, since lockdown, bullying is increasing online because our children and adults are desperate to look for friendships, and they find that obviously social interaction quite difficult and quite confusing. So that's the sad part of it. But I'm working alongside Katie Price now because Harvey, her son, has been bullied racially and because of his disability. So we're working on projects that's going to be happening next year on raising more awareness about bullying and autism, and how we can support more children and adults. And it has a knock-on effect on the whole family, and obviously siblings. So yes, and the Hero Awards has just grown. The fantastic work that's going on across the UK that people don't know about, and that's why I created the Autism Hero Awards. It was handed over to me by a lovely lady, a mum in Wales. She was just focusing on the Wales area, and I was presenting it, and it was just becoming too big for her. So she said, Anna, I want to hand it to you because I know you're going to do something with it. So it's been going now for 4 years, and it's amazing the amount of people that are doing such fantastic work, whether they're mums, whether they're carers, whether they're professionals, whether they're reporters that write really, really good articles. There are some not so nice articles, as you know, Ro, that are out there about autism, but our charity is about creating positivity. We know the negatives in autism, but it's about creating positivity, having light at the end of the tunnel for families that are just starting on their journey. It is difficult at the moment as well with COVID because everything's online. So diagnosis is online, having annual reviews, you know, they're online. So they can be quite difficult, but this is the world that we live in at the moment. And as like you, I didn't know what Zoom was until, you know, COVID started. I much prefer meeting people face to face, but Zoom is the way to go, and various other different online Google Meets, and there's some that I'd never even heard of before. But it's about sharing information. It's about trying to support people the best way we can. You know, we would normally have our Christmas event this year where 200 and odd families would come. So we had to think out the box. I work alongside lots of different other charities and groups. So this particular charity, we decided that Father Christmas was going to visit 200 and odd families. We've got gifts that we've given to them. So it's just thinking out the box, really. And that's something that I do all the time. My mind never rests. Even though Angelo doesn't sleep much, and as you know, I just said to you, he didn't go to bed till 5 o'clock this morning. That's my life. We call it the Wide Awake Club when we chat to other mums online, or dads, or Team No Sleep. But it's about thinking out the box, and it's about thinking of different ways to raise awareness about autism, and acceptance is key for our children and for our adults. So that's what I'm trying to do. All the time, and I'll keep doing it. You know, I reached a milestone this year. I was really worried about being 60 in March, and it was just like, and I think it's because I worry about who's going to look after my sons, you know, when I'm dead and gone, because that's the thought at the back of every mother and father and carers' minds, you know, because we're obviously, you know, it's a difficult world to navigate through, especially now. So, you know, that's the thing that I'm worried about. But, you know, I passed that milestone of being 60. I don't feel any different. I still got lots of energy.
Happy birthday on your, you don't look anywhere near 60. You look fantastic. But I think that sort of comes back to my second question. How do you keep going? How do you look at the world in this, you know, amazingly positive and, you know, compassionate way, despite having so much going on in your own life?
To be honest, I get asked a lot of saying, whatever you're on, Anna, you should bottle it and sell it. But I don't know, I've got something inside of me. It's like a fire. And I think that when that's gone, then that's the time to stop. But as Lisa, my PO, I've been working with for 10 years, she said, you're never going to stop. And my sister says the same. So I'm hoping to keep healthy and strong. I do lots of walking. I do exercise 10 minutes where I can in the morning or in the evening. I take my vitamins. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I never have. It just doesn't interest me. I do like clothes. But you've got to have one price, haven't you? So I like looking on eBay to get great bargains. So yeah, I am just a positive person. And you know, I do get some days where I just feel really, you know, tired. I think tiredness for me is like a big thing. If I had more sleep, I probably feel I could do more. But I just feel that, you know, my brain's always ticking over. I might be talking to you now, but I'm thinking of other things. My brain never stops. So yeah, I just want to do as much as I can to raise awareness and acceptance about autism, and all this bullying that's going on online is just like, it's just, some of it is just horrendous and it needs to stop. So that's why we're trying to stop. You know, if one person listens, it's worth doing.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Anna. Avril, tell us a little bit about, I mean, with Magpie, you know, who I'm more familiar with than obviously your new venture. You know, again, it was very much about dance. It was about, you know, friendship and, you know, finding a safe space to come and, you know, express your creativity and talent. How have they experienced the pandemic, and what have they been able to, I suppose, how have they been able to deal with the challenges?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, Ro, because yesterday I was online on Zoom with probably around 200 or so people celebrating Magpie's 35th anniversary.
Wow.
And I mean, that was amazing to think that 35 years, a brilliant legacy, and that, you know, the new team have taken it on, and with their passion and their commitment and their determination, the pandemic hasn't really, you know, hasn't stopped anything, because there was everyone on Zoom yesterday, and we saw dances that are choreographed by the participants, dancers with learning disabilities on the screen. So, you know, it's brilliant. As soon as the pandemic came on, all the classes, everything was put online, so that everyone was still able to access their sessions. They had, I don't know, maybe 3 sessions a day for people to log on to if they wanted to. So they could do it via Zoom, they could do it by YouTube. So people were still able to dance, still able to take part in the activities, and they had, Magpie works with live music. So they, I don't know how they did it, but they had the musicians who were accompanying the music, and the facilitators who were delivering the workshops, all together, which was brilliant. And the other great thing about what Magpie Dance does is that through the medium of Zoom, they're able to have the symbols, the widgets that explain to people what to do. So, for example, yesterday they would have the symbols of, obviously, of dance, the widgets, and then in symbol what you needed to do to learn a particular dance, which is brilliant. And they do that in their online classes as well, and they'll have to carry on with the online classes for the, well, foreseeable future. But so the pandemic actually hasn't stopped Magpie Dance delivering its work. It's probably enabled it to grow in a way, because they're able to reach more people than they have been able to. So they've had people from all, up and down the country. Normally their classes are held in Bromley, southeast London and surrounding areas, and they do classes in other areas, but because of Zoom, the wonderful medium of Zoom, that I hadn't heard of Zoom either before March. we've all had to get used to it. They can actually reach more people, and their funders are very happy with what's happening because they are continuing with their classes, continuing to reach people, continuing to make a difference to people's lives through dance. I set Magpie up as it was about people wanting to dance primarily. It wasn't about therapy. It was just people wanted to come and dance. And the secondary thing was that they had learning disabilities. So it was always the core was it was about ability and not disability, about focusing on the individual's potential and unlocking potential. And it was about, it's not a one size fits all. I expect a lot of people in this call can identify with that, not a one size fits all, because that's really important, that we don't just treat everybody the same and put everyone in the same box. Doesn't work that way. So the individual is at the core and at the heart. And that's something that Magpie Dance has been doing, well, up to carrying on now. That ethos and those values have continued. And so it was a wonderful legacy to see that yesterday, that celebration. They obviously wanted to do it in person, have a physical performance, but that wasn't possible. So they put everything online and it was brilliant, fantastic. I think you're on mute.
Sorry. I muted myself. The sun was shining so brightly in my eyes, it almost felt like I was being interrogated. So I had to go and close the curtain. I think what was interesting is that when there's a need, you come up with solutions that you didn't think of before. And I recently, I think it was a couple of days ago, a friend of mine who is a musician, in fact, Pooja and I know Ajit, you know Ajit, don't you? Yeah. He's now singing because he's retired from his investment banking career, and he's doing singing. And he and a group of friends put together this concert. It was pre-recorded videos, but it was stitched together into a live performance. And I was blown away because I didn't know what to expect, because sometimes the quality on Zoom is not brilliant. It's a bit hit and miss. And when he said live, I thought people were actually going to sing live on Zoom, and I was like, don't know how that's going to be. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. And I think it's created a formula for all kinds of performances to be recorded in the safety of, a studio where social distancing and whatever is maintained, but then stitch it together and allow a much wider audience to experience it than you could ever do in an auditorium. So thank you so much for sharing, Avril. And I think some of the comments in the chat, which you may not have read, is, the way you expressed, that dance is not about therapy, or, it's about expressing yourself, and it's about ability and not focusing on disability. Now, I'm conscious that Anna's going to head off literally in 3 minutes. Before you go, Anna, is there anything you'd like to share in terms of advice or, your most powerful lessons?
I think the thing is, for me, I've always said to people, never give up. So just take it a day at a time. And if you're passionate and driven about the cause that you want to represent, I think, you can achieve great things. And like I've always said about Magpie, I love dance. I started dancing when I was 6. I used to tap my feet under the desk, and I used to drive the teacher around the twist. And she told my mum to take me to tap dancing. And that's what I call, when I'm doing my dancing, I call it my autism free zone. So it's somewhere where I can recharge my batteries. And the power of dance within the school we started 20 years ago, because I was teaching the children, because I wanted to know, how they would react to lessons. They were amazing. And since then, we've now got a street dance crew at the school called Autism with Attitude. And they went to the Street Dance World Championships and they came 3rd. And it was like, I got a video from them screaming and jumping, and it was just like, wow, that is amazing. So the power of dance, I totally get it with what Avril's saying. And just very quickly, I did Strictly, which was like the best experience ever. That was like 5 years ago. I did People Strictly for comic relief. and it was about 6 different charities, and one of them was mine. And the amount of families that contacted me was amazing. And yeah, it's just, I believe in dance definitely recharges your batteries. So find what rocks your boat, whatever it is. Think about you, because sometimes you can get so, for 10 years I didn't do anything else. I didn't think about myself. I didn't do any dance. I didn't do any exercise. I was just totally focused on, oh, I'm setting up a school. I've never done it before. It was a big learning curve. It was a crash course and everything. And then I thought, I'm missing something. What is it that I'm missing? And it was my tap dancing. So I started doing tap dancing, and then I started doing exercise. And that's what I call my me time. So I have like an hour of that every week. So please don't burn yourself out, because people like you're interviewing now, we need people like that to inspire others and to help them and navigate their way and to find their way. So I just want to say, stay safe, everyone, stay strong, keep going one day at a time, don't give in, we'll get there, and all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's really powerful advice. Thank you so much, Anna. And Anna's going to be leaving us because she's got another engagement to get to. But we're going to continue this conversation with Avril, Vaidi, Shoma, and Pooja.
Okay.
So
thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Anna.
Bye.
I think following from what Anna was saying about the me time and how you recharge your batteries, I'm interested to hear from all of you how you do that for yourselves, because if you don't, we know that it's that oxygen mask analogy on a plane. They tell you, put your own oxygen mask first before you help others. It's easy to forget when you become a carer and you have so many people who need you. It's easy to think, well, I haven't got time for me because I'm less important than all these people. So I want to start with you, Avril. How do you obviously you've probably been doing this longer than anyone else here, with Magpie's 35th anniversary. Congratulations. That's an amazing achievement. How have you over the years found time to recharge?
Well, I think it's a really interesting question, and I know Anna's gone now, but I could really identify with what she was talking about, because when I founded Magpie, it consumed me. It was all consuming, of course, because you feel passionate about a cause and you feel passionate about what you're doing. And if there's nobody else to do it, then you just have to get on and do it. But I did learn over the years, and I work from home, so it was 24/7 a lot of the time. But then I got to realize, actually, this is what you're saying. It's not really healthy. It's not healthy for me as a person, or for the organization to be working in that way, because you need to have some time out for yourself to take a breather, to step back, to think, to regroup, to think, okay, what am I doing here? Because burning out is not going to help anybody. It's not going to help me as an individual, and it's not going to help the organization. So I started to try and set some stricter parameters to my working practices at home, because it's all around you. But I started to try and think, okay, I'm going to stop at such and such a time, and it's not easy because it's always there. However, that did help a bit, and I enjoyed running. So I started running at the age of 50. I'd never ever done it ever in my life, and my ambition, I thought, right, I really want to run a marathon, a London marathon. And there was a chap who was running it who was 94, and I thought, wow, well, if that guy can run it, then I can. So I entered to do the marathon, and I got a place and I ran it, and it was brilliant. And I raised about £6,000 or so for Magpie Dance at the same time, which was great. That was good. So I kept that up for a bit. I love going to watch dance. I really enjoy watching ballet or contemporary, and that's a real, that enables one to sort of switch off from everything else. We enjoy walking. My husband and I like walking out in the country, or in the to the fields or the trees. And during the pandemic, because we haven't been able to go, well, like everyone else, to many places, we enjoy nature, and I think it's fantastic going out, appreciating nature, what's around us in our, what the little things, because before we didn't have time to do that. We were rushing around doing this, that, and everything else. But actually taking time to just stop and think, right, what's nearby? We have been, and I think it's great. It really refreshes the mind and the body and the soul if we can, be with nature outside, when it's warm enough, nice enough. But that's also another great way that to refresh and recharge and just to sort of get away from, what's going on inside or in one's life. So I do that. And I think also now, since I stepped down from Magpie, which was the right time, it was, we moved right across to the other side of London. So I live in North London now. Magpie's based in Bromley. There were other personal things going on. So it was the right time to step down. I'd, been preparing for doing that for, quite a while. It wasn't a sort of a quick decision. And so I think having the variety of what I do now is really interesting. So I can, turn my attentions to different things, working with different people, different organisations, and that's also refreshing and keeps one on the go and keeps the brain in action. Because, I could have just said, okay, that's it when I finished with Magpie Dance, but I didn't want to stop. I feel I've still got more there that I want to give, that I want to be able to benefit and make a difference to other people and organisations. So I carried on.
Thank you, Avril. So I think maybe what's coming for me from that is that, it's first of all creating clear boundaries, because if you don't have that, then you could end up burning out. And I do believe that that's the case for every one of us. I mean, it's not just people who are doing charity work or, helping others. So just directly from that, then Pooja, tell me about how you create boundaries, because I know that task is only one of your many things that you do. You've got a very, very full-on sort of life with lots of other things going on. How do you make time for yourself?
So I think what worked really well for for me during the pandemic is as you may be aware, in India, and especially in large cities, sometimes you are doing a lot of stuff, whether it's social commitments, they're just generally, there are a lot of things that you can, really do without in your life. And sometimes it just becomes very difficult to draw those boundaries. And the lockdown, and especially the kind of strict lockdown that Mumbai saw, enforced that. And I think for me, I quite enjoy working with whatever I do, because it's really not work, it's my passion. But sometimes, so just to be able to for me time is just being able to do everything that I want to do. So even if it's still working for the causes, for me, that's still me time, vis-a-vis doing something which involves the kids or the husband or the home, So I think there was definitely more time to be able to do that. The time that I used to really switch off everything from everything was going to a gym, and that stopped completely. It still stopped. So so that, I think I missed that initially. And unlike what Avril was saying, we don't have access to beautiful gardens, and you just can't step out and say I've gone for a beautiful walk in the enjoyed nature when you live in the heart of Mumbai, where we stay. So, but I kind of, for me, my new outdoors became a little balcony space, and just maybe walking in that same limited space, but listening to good music, or listening to an audio book, or listening to YouTube video. All of that became like very, very special, and became like the new normal for me, and it still is. So I think along with so cutting out a lot of stuff that I could now find an opportunity not to do, that earlier was not possible. That for me has created a lot of time for myself. I love music. I love dancing, Avril, but unfortunately, also have knee problems. So I no longer can kind of enjoy that. But I'm very inspired to hear that you've started running, because it's one of those things I hope to do. Never for a marathon, but at least for a few kilometers gradually. So I'm very excited to hear that. So I hope that's something one can do. But yeah, so this is one aspect of the pandemic I've really enjoyed, because I've had the space to do a lot more of my stuff and more me time in that sense.
So I guess, Pooja, to sum up what you said, is that is about creating boundaries becomes easier when you actually really know what you want for
Yes,
yourself and what makes you happy.
and I could really do that, during this pandemic. So also, I'm sorry, I'm going to add one more thing, because, some people have been more careful than others. And I chose to be one of those who was being extra cautious. And so that kind of made it easier to isolate oneself, and then therefore have more time to focus on what one had to do just for themselves. And it definitely gave me more time to do what I want to do rather than what I was expected to do, which was pre the lockdown. So yeah, so that's something. In fact, I was one of those who was having anxiety when the lockdowns were ending, because I said, oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to adjust back to the hectic old life again. So yeah, so
And
this.
just following on, because I don't want to forget that question, how will you maintain this relatively sort of controlled environment where you get the time you want to do the things you want? How are you going to take that into the new normal when things maybe return to whatever normality means?
So I think in India, we're probably going to see it a little slower, whether it's the vaccine or whatever else, because of sheer numbers of what we're dealing with. A lot of us are surrounded by, elderly people, people who, so you want to protect. And so I think, so while we are kind of getting back to normal in a lot of ways, I don't think we'll be quite back to what things used to be for a while. And so I'm just taking it one day at a time. And, I think we're a little while away from, going back to things exactly the way they were. So I'm not thinking too much about it yet. So I'm trying to make a habit of the way life is presently. And, so I'm sure people also get used to the fact that you've adapted to a slightly more different lifestyle, and, hopefully respect that as well. So
Yes, and I suppose they will have too. So,
exactly,
we will
exactly.
adapt to this new way of being. So I want to next go to Vaidi. Now, Vaidi, I think with you, there's an additional dynamic, obviously, that you live alone. And so I'm curious to find out how you have dealt with the isolation that the pandemic has brought to people who live alone, and also how you maintain energy levels for yourself, because what you do is incredible, that your reach is growing. Talk us through that.
I think I've been living alone for about 18 years, so I'm pretty used to it. So that way, there was no change. I do all my things myself, and what changed was my minimum 5 kilometer run outdoors became 5 kilometer run indoors, and but I found that I was able to carve out much more time to do things. I allocate more time to a bit more of my strengthening exercises, bit more time to listening to MS Subbulakshmi that I love, and so I've also set very specific timelines on what I work. When I work, about 6 to 7 hours a day in specific timelines, and because I think it's very important when you're actually stuck completely inside at home, you can always be all over the place. So that I've been very, very careful, and I'm very particular about getting my 7 to 8 hours of good sleep, because without that I won't be able to. I think sleep is a very, very important aspect, and in my case, is I've had reasons to be even more careful, because with the spinal cord injury, the consequences of COVID infection would be significantly graver and faster. And as you are aware, just to enlighten up people a little bit, in this time of COVID pandemic, I actually went through a 15-day period of hospitalization for severe acute respiratory illness due to some other cause, due to a bacterial infection. And I was actually, on the day I went to Christian Medical College, Vellore, I was probably 48 hours away from perhaps multi-organ failure. I was in the stage of septicemia. So this was in April, middle of April. So after that, I became even more careful, and the number of people who come into my home is severely restricted. And but I think the fact that uh, we have found a solution to reach, that really excites me, and that's been a big boost. And every day I also allocate 2 hours to speaking to somebody somewhere who needs some guidance, and pretty much everybody in our team does that. So this has been big for us. Until last year, people used to call us. We used to guide them to the best of our ability on the phone. But beyond that, you couldn't do much. Now we are realizing that beyond that is not there. That ceiling is broken, and that again gives, in fact, a lot of energy to the entire team as well. And we set out very clearly boundaries of what not to do in the late February and early March itself. I mean, it might surprise a lot of you that our first guidance for people with spinal cord injury in India was issued on March 4th, when the number of COVID cases in India was 29 and the number of deaths was 0. And this was based on an experience of a respiratory illness that one of our very high level spinal cord injured persons suffered last year due to H1N1 swine flu. So we knew pretty much frame by frame what will happen if COVID infection strikes a person with spinal cord injury. So doing all of that, and I mean, we've been very regular with our COVID-19 guidance calls. They've been managing persons with spinal cord injury who have had COVID in their homes without even testing. And so there's been lots to do, but I've made sure that I'm maintaining my blocks of time. And the fact that after 8 months of lockdown, if I can tell you that today I'm in the best fitness of my life, despite having that very acute respiratory illness, I think that should tell you that I'm balancing. And it's very important. And because you must do this work for the next 30, 40 years. And in that case, the impact and the footprint, everything will be much larger.
That is awesome. Yeah, Pooja's just messaged that is awesome. And you know, touch wood, and long may your good health continue, Vaidi. I think for me, what's interesting is what you said is that one is to the power of sleep. And I think, you know, poor Anna is the opposite end of that spectrum. She doesn't get enough sleep. I do agree with you. I think it's one that a lot of us tend to ignore, and sometimes feel that, you know, if we can get by with less sleep, then we're getting more done. I think also in your case, Vaidi, having known you for so many years and followed your story, especially for the last, you know, 5 or 6 years, is that what you've done really well is expand your team of other people. So it's not just all relying on you. And that's really important. I think, Avril, that's the reason you were able to step down from Magpie and is still going from strength to strength to create a team of people who can continue your good work, even if you're not around, which then allows you to take a bit more time for yourself. Thank you so much. And Shoma, the same question to you. Shoma, how are you sort of making sure you're not getting burnt out?
I think I've had experience in training myself not to get burnt out when I started my company. I think the initial 2 years were, you know, it's in a startup, you know how it is, right? It's 24/7, 365. You are immersed in work, and everything was parked for me. Everything was, after I'm done with the company, I will do this, and after I'm done, I will do that. And then I soon realized there's no after. And in the process, I was completely burning out. I needed relief. And I started painting. So that was a huge source of stress relief for me, which till this day I use whenever I need to. I started learning classical music, vocals. Again, I said, you know, I don't know when the company is going to wind up and wrap up, but my dream of becoming, learned in classical music will probably never happen if I don't take the step now. So singing is another thing that I do a lot. But you know, one of the things that the problem I have, I think you are wired in a certain way. So I'm a little like Anna. My mind is always working. So I simply cannot calm down. Even if I don't work physically on something, my mind is working because I'm thinking about 10 other things that I can possibly do, which I should do, which could have some benefit for someone. So calming that mind is very hard for me. But anyways, the mechanisms I adopt, as I said, paint, sing. Uh, luckily enough, a couple of years back, I started a little farm of my own where I've planted everything that I wanted to see grow on a piece of land. So I go there once a week, and look at everything, pluck stuff, bring them back home. So these are the mechanisms I adopt. But the problem I also have is that Let's Do Some Good Foundation is only one of the things that I do. I'm involved with multiple other organizations at various levels, and they are for-profit organizations, startups, which I mentor, which I invest in. There are non-profit organizations that I'm on the board of and I advise. There are business schools and schools that I am on the advisory board of. So everybody needs a little bit of your time. And when they come to you, they say, oh, only 4 meetings a year, and it's not going to be anything. We'll take up, 2 hours of your time every quarter. But when you add up 15, 20 organizations and everybody's little problem or big problem that comes your way, you literally have your hands full at all times. And the other issue I have is that if I commit to something, then I can't just be a fly on the wall. So if there is something going on with any organization and they come to me, it's not just a signature that I'm going to provide. I will use my brains and provide my inputs. So that is an issue. And one of the biggest things that I heard somebody say the other day is that the biggest disservice that you can do to yourself is when you say yes to everybody. Because you're saying no to yourself. There are many things that you need to do for yourself or you want to do for yourself, which you're sacrificing because you're saying yes to anybody who comes your way for anything. And that is a problem I suffer from. I'm working on that during the pandemic. I've also learned that the world will not fall apart if I don't have my finger on everything that's going on. Remotely I've been working. I've not visited a single project of mine in the last 7-8 months. I've been very cautious. Everything is running very well. So I do not have to be physically present everywhere. There are many times where I've not even been able to give my inputs, but work has happened. And in fact, work has tripled, maybe I would say this, in the last few months. So these are, simple lessons that I've imbibed during the last few months. And I'm trying to, put those boundaries, but again, with a very, with a hyperactive mind, you really have to rein yourself in. So one blessing has been my daughter is here. She's doing her classes online. She goes to college in US, as you know, and she's been here since March. She is an artist. She's studying art, and I love to do art. So we spend a lot of time doing art together, which is so amazing. I cannot tell you the therapeutic effects of art and music. Dance I've always wanted to do, but I think my whole body is made of lead. Every dance class I've joined has shut down, and I strongly believe it was because of me. I still hope to learn dance someday, but I think, like every other speaker has said, I think the pandemic has really shown us that yes, creating those boundaries is very important. Doing things that you like to do, which calm you, which give you a sense of fulfillment, which I love everything that I do. So every time I do a painting and I look at it, I absolutely fall in love with it, and it just rejuvenates me and gives me that much more energy to go out there and do the work that I have to, right? So it's a very it's a very complementary thing, taking care of yourself and giving back. If you do one well, you'll do the other well. If you don't do one well, which is taking care of yourself, you are not functioning at your peak, and therefore you cannot be contributing as much as you otherwise can. So that's what
I love that. In fact, someone I know who used to be an athlete said, that rest day is also training day, because very often people think, oh, if I'm not training, then I'm not, not going to be ready for my game or whatever. And yeah, rest day is equally important. So I'm sort of, we've got about 8 minutes, and what I'd like to invite each of you for just a couple of minutes is to share your vision of how how the people you support and the causes you're helping and the people that are being supported by those causes, how can we as a society make it possible for them to go on and live independently or do the things that really shine on their ability rather than their disability? And if I know 2 minutes is not very long to say this, but how has the pandemic made it maybe more possible for that to happen with, greater access to technology and working from home becoming more of a mainstream thing. Who would like to go first? Maybe we could start with, should we start with Avril?
Sure. Gosh, that's quite a thing to think about. Okay. Well, I think in some ways, actually, this new world that we're living in, or changed world that we're living in, has enabled more inclusion and access in lots of ways, because people don't have to physically get to a destination or a class or something else, and it can, that I've been to quite a few meetings on Zoom where I've heard people say, actually, people that were disabled, who have said, actually, this is great, Zoom, because it means that I can get there. I can be part of this meeting. I can be part of the conversation, part of the discussion. So I think in some ways it's helped this new world we're living in, or changed world. It's helped to be perhaps more inclusive. But the flip side of that is that there's nothing that can replace the physical contact with people. And I think that's something that we lose from, and we, miss out on having that actual physical face-to-face contact, because there's lots of things you can't pick up on Zoom, like, how someone's feeling necessarily, or their rapport, etc. Anyway, I'm veering off what you were asking, but I think essentially that I think this new, different, changed world can help to make things more inclusive. However, that doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't forget about inclusion and diversity and equality, because that's incredibly important, really important. And I think we have, there's a risk of forgetting about that when we're worrying about lots of other things, and all the things that we hear about going on here in the UK about children not having enough food to eat. And people really being on the poverty line, which I appreciate in India is very common. I've visited India several times, so I've seen some of the poverty that goes on there, and it's shocking, really shocking. Yeah, so I guess not to forget about the things that are important to everyone, not to forget about the things to make our society, our communities more inclusive and more accessible and more equal for everyone that's on the planet.
Great, thank you, Avril. And the same question to Vaidi. Vaidi, how have the people you've supported experienced, in terms of opportunities? Do you feel that they will be more able to find jobs, or, show the value that they can bring to organizations thanks to the pandemic?
In general, Rohini, I think minimum, very safely, we can say at least 90, maybe 95% of persons with all types of disabilities are from economically challenged background. And when I say that, very economically challenged backgrounds, and they have always, they have probably lived a pandemic style of life, being confined to home, secluded, excluded from society. But I think this pandemic and the fact that education, there are more interactions possible in the virtual mode, if only we could enable devices, basic simple devices, basic smartphones to every person with disability in India, I think there's an opportunity to transform the lives of persons with disability in India in a way that we may never get to doing again. And on the employment front, a lot of companies now realize that the disabled need not have been excluded so far. They could do these jobs that they said you need to come to a particular campus and do it because we have strict compliance requirements, blah, blah, blah. All that has gone out of the door. Now everybody works from home, and I think we are getting more inquiries from companies about wanting people, engage persons with disability anywhere in India, provided they do this. So this is good. But I think in India, children with disabilities and children of persons with disabilities are suffering in a disproportionate way because of the lack of devices. education has moved online, but devices have not everybody has it. They may have a smartphone and the capacity issues, even basic issues are there. So this problem has to be solved, and I think uh, it's also a chance to reshape the debate on accessibility in India. I know in UK you will take it for granted. I think in India, the definition of, unless the definition of accessibility is changed to accessibility is not a ramp, accessibility is a uh, accessible bathroom in the place wherever you go or whichever home you go to. Unless that basic change in definition is done, I think accessibility in India is a sham. I sincerely hope that that will change, but we are finding massive needs for uh, uh, devices. And suddenly people, children with disabilities and parents of children with disabilities, they feel there's also an opportunity. Now there are so many online options to learn various things. They are feeling much more comfortable. So if only this devices gap could be bridged, we really will be transforming. And devices has been, I mean, WhatsApp, Facebook, videos, audio messages, these have been the prime modes of working and networking in the spinal cord injury space. And I guess it'll be the true in other spaces as well. Just to give you one touching example, today there is a girl with paralysis and complete vision loss due to a fever at the age of 3. She's from a fairly good family, and she has completed her schooling, her post graduation. There's another girl with a similar issue who's 13, who's never been to school, economically challenged background, no smartphone. We got that girl a smartphone, and now this girl is teaching that girl, and both of them are paralyzed. Both of them don't have vision, but one girl is teaching the other girl. And I think for me, it's probably been the big banner story of 2020. I'll share a couple of the audio exchanges. You will probably realize what I say. She's just started basics like Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. That's the kind of thing she's learning. But it's so amazing.
Thank you so much, Vaidi. I think, with that, I want to go to Shoma. Shoma, you talked about the fact that your partners were providing tablets to people because, people say, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man to fish, feed him for life. But the man can't fish if he doesn't have a fishing rod, he doesn't have the tools. So talk us through how you see the vision for, these young people and, job prospects and all the rest of it.
Sure. So you've picked up my favorite cliched line that I always try to refute. Ever since I started working in this space, I would be asked by people, why are you trying to do this? The government is supposed to help with education of children. Why are you getting into it? And I said, look, it's 65, 70 years since we got independent, and the government has clearly not been able to provide universal free education to all our children. Particularly the worst, the worst hit are the ones that we deal with. So while there are activists and policymakers who are going to work on the policy of how to teach these people to fish, let me go ahead and give them the fish so that they at least know the taste of fish and will aspire to go and do the fishing. Because without that, they don't even know what is fish. Forget it. But this is something that you encounter all the time. People will always say, why do charity? Do not do charity. You should be making impact by empowering people. Yes, of course, and that's what we do eventually. But the fact remains that the poorest of the poor who do not have access to anything, if you're going to wait for the government or society, civil society, to make changes that are going to be drastic enough to take everybody to the level of equality as the haves, it's not going to happen. It's simply not going to happen. So I think, it is very important for people like us who are working at the grassroots with partners, providing charity, giving the fish, making sure that tablets, which are so important. Vaidi, I hadn't even thought about what Vaidi had said. I had just thought, the poor people don't have access to devices and therefore education is a problem, opportunities are lacking. But now that Vaidi mentioned, for the disabled people, it's doubly so, right? So I think, so for us, it is very important to keep on doing the work that we do. If we do not provide those tablets, if we do not help with access, online access to content for these people who we give devices to, education is simply going to stall. You look at the indicators internationally, India has the poorest indicators in terms of literacy, in terms of health, in terms of nutrition, you name it. And whatever little work that we've been doing is all going backwards, because now suddenly we are not able to do this physically with them anymore. And then if you say, okay, let's wait for the government to come up with policies to, provide access through devices or whatever to these people, we are talking of loss of work, cumulative work by thousands of organizations to actually move the needle by, a hair's breadth. I think we need to continue what we are doing. We have seen that the societies, the communities that we work with, the children, the parents are slowly getting excited about continuing education or continuing to reap benefits of what organizations like us can provide, so that they can see a better future, which is very important, because most of the time they don't want to deal with us. They're like, education is not important. My child can go out, pick trash, sell it, and get 100 rupees. We need to eat. We need that 100 rupees, right? So given that the mindset change takes so long, and given that now again we have to restart from the bottom, and slowly the communities are coming to terms with the new reality, accepting the new way of doing things, we must go on doing what we're doing. One of the very important things that I think for people like us is, if we have even the slightest place of power and privilege and a network, it is criminal for us not to connect individuals or organizations who may be even remotely interested in helping the type of people that we're working with, in whichever, whether it is the disabled, whether it's the autistic, whether it's the, the urban poor slum folks, or the rural poor that we work with. Even one connect, and I can say that it has happened with me. It happens with me every day. I get a message from somebody and I send it to somebody I think who may be interested, and you believe me, the amount of stuff that we have got in kind, in cash, in connects, in opportunities, just through that single one message that maybe I have sent to someone, just thinking that maybe that person would be interested in helping, it is astonishing. So that opportunity that we are able to create, because we have a network, because we have access to devices, because we have access to everything, just spending that 1 second to send a message or to connect to people, it is important. It doesn't even require us to open our own purses. It doesn't even require hard work sometimes, but it is so effective. So I think whatever each individual in each of our capacity we can do, if we just do it, this pandemic and more can be overcome. When you talk about 130 crore people that we have in our country, we used to have this discussion. If out of that, half of them were to put away 10 rupees a month, imagine that half are unable to put away 10 rupees. The other half can put away 10 rupees a month. And, you can translate it into pounds and, all of that later on. But 10 rupees a month, if half of that 130 crore, people put away, imagine how much money would accumulate every month that could go into social services work. It's just, just look at it, right? Do the math. So if that is possible, which seems like a very simple solution, very simplistic, right? But we're not doing it. I'm saying if 10 of us who have connects, who are able to do things, who are able to come up with solutions, and present it to 10 other people, who's presented to another 10 people, imagine the ripple effect of doing good that comes about, right? And which helps solve social problems, which helps pick up people who are right now absolutely in the pits because of the pandemic. So anything is possible. It's just the power of collaboration. I absolutely believe in it. And collaborations need not be big. They can be very, very small. Solutions need not be rocket science solutions. They can be very small, out of the box thinking, as Anna talked about, right? That's what we need. Creating opportunities is very, very easy. Tapping our networks is very, very easy. Doing small things is very easy. So I think all of us who are able to, let's just do it. And, we can easily get out of this situation, and our beneficiaries will definitely, come out of where they are right now if we put our hats on, think a little bit, do things this way.
So many powerful messages in there. Just for people who are not familiar with crore and rupees, that's 1.3 billion, which is the population of India. And I think you talked about 10 rupees, which is about 10 cents. So it's really not a lot of money. I also, I think what you said, Shoma, is that the power of network compared to the hub and spoke approach. I think some people who set up good causes, they really want their name to be attached to it. They feel like they need to be at the center of everything and controlling everything, and that limits the the reach. Whereas if with your approach, where you're connecting people, you're not really caring too much about getting credit for that connection. You just want, people to go and do good, is a really powerful model. And I think with that, I want to go to Pooja, because your model is very similar. You thrive on connecting people and seeing that sort of flourish. So talk about what you see, the potential, the vision for the people that you're supporting going into the new normal, whatever that's going to look like. I think you might still be on mute. Shall I unmute you, or you can mute yourself? Unmute yourself.
So I think I agree with everything, what everyone said. And, rather than resonate the same sentiment, I'm going to just probably give one or two examples. So there is a blind student, blind from birth, who's working with Punjab National Bank. And he told me that during the pandemic, Pooja ma'am, one of the best things I'm experiencing is that I'm working from home. So to just bring up what Vaidhi said, that he said, earlier there was so much of discrimination against me because I was blind, and even though I was way, way more capable. And he's completely computer literate. He's super intelligent, but his career started off with him with another bank, where he had to just put letters in an envelope, and he was capable of a lot more. But they said, in the disability quota, that they, it's crudely described as, this is all that you can do. And he's now been with the bank for 7 years, and not this bank, he's moved to Punjab National Bank. And he was just so happy about the fact that now that he's placed or positioned exactly like everybody else, his true potential is really coming out. To lay emphasis on what Shoma said related to tablets, I've been hearing about so many people talking about how they can help. When people have approached me, and I said, our philosophy for Towards a Special Cause has always been, do what you can, when you can, from whomever you can, in whatever way you can. And so it's always about, I believe, a lot more in the pull factor rather than the push factor for cause. So if you feel if you come to me, I'm going to tell you today that during this pandemic, or while we're still battling it, one of the key needs is tablets. I don't think there's been greater disparity between, classes. Privileged kids are sitting with laptops, unlimited access to data and Wi-Fi. And when you tell a child who's sharing a small smartphone, which has also been donated by somebody, probably not in the best working condition, and there's three kids of a family trying to do classes at the same time on it, it's unimaginable. So it's very fancy to say that, oh, India has become, gone to online classes, including, a driver's child and everything. But, if you really dig down deeper and see the quality of that education that child is having to kind of grapple with vis-a-vis going to a school, there's just so much privilege people can do. So now if somebody approaches me, I have a very, I don't have the varied options that I used to give earlier for the last 20 years. I said, listen, the need of the hour right now is to make sure that everyone who needs tablets, who needs devices with which they can study or work, which are going to help them earn a livelihood, has to be, or is of primary importance to me, apart from, of course, food and shelter. So that's really key for me.
So I think the access to technology, the access to accessibility to the wider world is a key thing. And just to give you an example, I've started taking singing lessons, and my singing teacher is actually based in India, and we have our lessons on Skype. I would have never imagined I could do singing lessons on Skype, but that is what is possible. But there are many people like him who are not able to do that because they haven't got decent Wi-Fi, or they haven't got a decent, laptop or phone to do that. So I
Absolutely.
completely agree. Now we could carry on talking for at least another hour, but I realize that everyone's got, lives to get back to, and I'm so grateful for all of your insight. Now, if you've been watching, if you got to the end of this conversation, I would say it is really worth reading their stories and, just getting a sense of what it was that sparked this passion in them, why they do what they do. And, just a final reminder that their stories are in this book. I'm trying to get the light to not shine in the wrong place. And the book is available on all online retailers, but you can also buy it direct from me if you're in the UK or based in Europe. If you want to get in touch with any of our guests today, I'm going to put links to their websites if they have a website, or if there's another way that you can get in touch with them. I will check with them to find out if they'd like to share that link. And if not, please take away whatever messages that resonate with you and go and do some good.